You find out on a Tuesday, not from her. That is the first thing you need to know. Not from a conversation, not from an honest moment, not from the kind of ending that at least has the dignity of looking you in the eye. You find out from Instagram, a story she posted at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night, her and someone you have never seen before, at a rooftop restaurant you could not afford, with a view of the city that costs money just to look at. She is laughing in the photograph, genuinely laughing, the kind of laugh you used to be the reason for. His watch costs more than your monthly rent. You know this because you looked it up. You are not proud of looking it up, but you looked it up. You have been together for 2 years, 3 months, and some number of days that you know exactly but will stop counting soon. You promise yourself you will stop counting soon. Her name is Madison. She was the best thing that had happened to you in a long time, and she is gone. And the person she is gone with has a Porsche 911 and a father who owns 3 buildings in Manhattan and a jaw that looks like it was designed by someone with a grudge against ordinary people. This is your story, the story of what happens after the story ends. And I promise you, it gets better. Not quickly, not linearly, but it gets better. Stay with me. Let me tell you who you were together. Because before we talk about the end, you deserve to remember what was real. You met Madison 18 months before the Instagram story at a mutual friend's birthday in Brooklyn, one of those apartment parties where 40 people are somehow in a space designed for 10 and everyone is talking too loud and the playlist is slightly wrong, but nobody wants to be the person who changes it. She was standing near the window. She was wearing a yellow dress and arguing very confidently with someone twice her size about a film neither of you had seen. You watched her win the argument. You thought, I would like to talk to that person. So you did. You walked over and you introduced yourself, and she looked at you with those eyes, green, specific, the kind of eyes that make you feel assessed and approved of simultaneously. And she said, I've seen you somewhere before. And you said, I don't think so. And she said, no, I definitely have. And she was right. You had both been at the same coffee shop every Tuesday morning for 6 months, sitting at opposite ends, never speaking. The universe, she said, is extremely unsubtle. You laughed. That was it. That was the beginning. For 2 years, you built something, not a glamorous something. You were 27, working in marketing at a mid-sized company in Manhattan, making decent money but not significant money, living in a one-bedroom in Astoria that you had made genuinely nice through effort and taste rather than budget. Madison was doing her master's degree. She worked part-time at a gallery in Chelsea. She was brilliant and funny, and occasionally infuriating in the specific way that brilliant people are infuriating when they are wrong and absolutely certain they are right. You did ordinary things. You cooked dinner most nights because you were better at it. You watched films on the couch with her feet in your lap. You went to the farmer's market on Saturday mornings and argued about whether the expensive olive oil was worth it. She said yes. You said no. You usually bought it anyway because her face when she cooked with good olive oil was worth the $12. You loved her, quietly, consistently, in the daily unglamorous way that is the only real kind. She let you. For 2 years, she let you. Here is the thing about endings. They do not arrive. They have already been arriving for a long time before you notice them. Looking back, and you will look back many times in the weeks that follow, with the specific exhausting focus of someone trying to find the exact moment it broke, you will find signs, not proof of betrayal, not dramatic red flags, just the small consistent evidence of someone slowly making more room for a future that did not include you. The Friday night she started going to events you were not invited to. Not because she excluded you, she always had a reasonable explanation, but because the explanations became more frequent and the invitations became less. The way she started talking about money differently, not resentfully. Madison was never cruel, but with a wistfulness that you registered and filed away without fully examining. Comments about restaurants she wanted to try, trips she was seeing on her phone, a coat in a shop window that she looked at for a few seconds longer than she looked at coats in shop windows before. You were not poor. You were normal. But normal, in New York, in your late 20s, around certain people in certain circles, can start to feel like a category. His name, you will learn later, is Carter. His father owns 3 buildings. Carter works in finance in the way that people whose fathers own buildings work in finance, present adequately, with the confidence of someone for whom failure is a concept that applies to other people. He met Madison at a gallery opening in Chelsea. Of course he did. He bought a piece. Of course he did. You did not know any of this while it was happening. You knew only that something had shifted, that the person in your apartment was still Madison and still kind and still occasionally right about the olive oil, but that some part of her attention had gone somewhere you could not follow. You told yourself it was stress, her thesis, the end of the academic year. You were wrong, but you were not foolish. You were in love. Those two things look identical from the inside. She tells you on a Sunday evening, in your kitchen, which is, in retrospect, both the most ordinary and the most devastating place she could have chosen. Because you will spend the next 6 months standing in that kitchen making coffee and cooking dinner and doing completely ordinary things in a room that will carry this conversation in its walls for as long as you live there. She is kind about it. You want to be clear about that, because the story that will form in your head in the weeks that follow, the story where she is a villain and you are a wronged hero, is not entirely accurate, and you owe it to yourself to remember what actually happened. She is kind. She is honest. She tells you that she has feelings for someone else. She tells you that nothing physical happened while you were together. You believe her, and you will keep believing her, but that she has been confused for a while, and she cannot keep pretending she is not. She does not say his name. You do not ask. Not yet. You stand there and you listen, and some part of you is taking notes. The precise journalist instinct of a brain trying to record something for future processing that it cannot process in real time. She is crying. You are not crying. You will cry later, extensively, but right now you are extremely calm in the way that people are extremely calm when they are in shock, and their nervous system has decided that emotions are a problem for tomorrow. You say, okay. She says, I'm so sorry. You say, I know. And then she leaves. And you stand in the kitchen for a long time looking at the olive oil on the counter, the expensive one, the one she always said was worth it. And you think about nothing in particular for quite a long time. Then you pick up your phone and you see the Instagram story and you look up the watch, and the number on the watch feels less like information and more like a verdict. And here is where it gets complicated, because the easy story, the one your friends will tell you over beers, the one the internet loves, is that she chose money over love and is therefore shallow, and you are better off in good riddance. And you will believe that story for a while because it is the more comfortable one. But you are honest enough eventually to sit with the harder version. Carter is not a bad person. You do not know Carter. You know his watch and his Porsche and his father's buildings and the fact that Madison is laughing in photographs with him in a way that looks genuine. None of that makes him a villain. It makes him someone with advantages you do not have, who met a person you love at a moment when she was ready to go somewhere new. And Madison is not shallow. You knew Madison for 2 years, and shallow is the last word that applies. What she is, what she was in those last few months, is a 26-year-old woman standing at the beginning of her life, looking at 2 different versions of it and making a choice. You are allowed to be devastated by that choice. You are not required to make her monstrous for making it. The comparison that is eating you alive right now, you versus Carter, your apartment versus his, your salary versus his, your Tuesday nights at the diner versus his rooftop restaurants, that comparison is real, and it is painful, and it is also ultimately the wrong question. The question is not why you are not Carter. The question is who you are building yourself into becoming. And that question has an answer. It just requires more time than a Tuesday night Instagram story gives you. But right now in this section of the story, you are allowed to feel every single feeling without having to resolve it into a lesson yet. The feelings are grief, inadequacy, anger at the specific unfairness of a world where effort and decency and genuine love are not always enough, anger at yourself for not being further along, anger at him for existing, anger at the universe for introducing them at a Chelsea gallery where you were not. All of that is valid, all of it. Feel it fully. And then, when you are ready, keep reading. The first week is the worst. Everyone says this, and everyone is right. You sleep badly. You eat sporadically. You check her Instagram with the frequency of someone monitoring a medical situation, compulsively, unhelpfully, unable to stop, even though every check makes things worse. You see photographs of the life she is living, and each one is a small, precise wound in exactly the same place. You call your best friend. He comes over. He brings beer and terrible advice and his complete, unconditional presence. And that last thing is the only one that actually helps. You talk for 4 hours. You say things you have never said out loud before about feeling like you were never quite enough, about the specific fear of being the person who loves more, about the way her face looked in that Instagram photo, and how it is the same face you fell in love with. And that is somehow the worst part. Your friend listens. He does not try to fix it. He is smart enough to know it cannot be fixed yet. He just stays. The second week, you go back to the gym, not because you have a plan, because the apartment is too quiet and your body needs somewhere to put what your mind cannot process. You lift weights badly and run on a treadmill with the unfocused aggression of a person using exercise as a controlled explosion, and it helps. It actually helps. The third week, something shifts, slightly, unmistakably. The Instagram checks go from compulsive to occasional. The sleep improves from terrible to merely bad. You cook a real meal for the first time, not the expensive olive oil, not yet, but something real. And you eat it at the kitchen table, and you sit with the quiet that used to feel like loss and notice that it also, just slightly, feels like space. Space is not happiness. Space is not healed. But space is the beginning of something that is not grief, and that matters more than it sounds. 6 weeks out, and you are finally ready to hear the truth, not the comfortable version, the actual one. Madison did not leave you because you were not rich enough. That is the simple story, and simple stories are almost never the whole truth. Madison left you because she was at a point in her life where she was figuring out who she was and what she wanted, and the person she was becoming was pulling in a direction you were not going. That is not a crime. That is a 26-year-old woman doing exactly what 26-year-old people are supposed to do. And yes, Carter's money made certain things possible that your income did not. That is real. The rooftop restaurant is real. The Porsche is real. The ease that comes from not worrying about the bill is real. And it is naive to pretend it does not matter to people. It matters to people. It mattered to Madison in this moment of her life. That is honest. But here is what else is true. You are 27 years old. You are at the beginning of your story, not the end of it. The apartment in Astoria, the marketing job, the diner on Tuesday nights, that is not the ceiling of your life. That is chapter 3. And people who judge a book by chapter 3 miss everything that comes after. Carter has a head start that was handed to him. You are building something from the beginning. Those two things produce different people. And the person built from the beginning, who knows what effort costs, who earned every step, who understands the value of things because he has had to calculate it, that person has something that a head start cannot give you. You do not know this yet in the way that matters. You know it intellectually. You will know it in your bones eventually. The difference between those two kinds of knowing is time and work and the specific education of going through something hard and coming out the other side changed. You are in the middle of that education right now. It does not feel like school. It feels like loss. But it is both. 3 months later, you still think about her. That is not weakness. That is what 2 years means. 2 years of Tuesday mornings and olive oil arguments and feet on your lap on the couch, that does not disappear in 3 months, and you should not expect it to. Anyone who tells you to just get over it has never had something worth getting over. But something has changed. You have stopped checking her Instagram. Not as an act of discipline. You did not make a rule. You simply one day did not check it, and the next day did not check it. And at some point, you noticed that you had not checked it in 2 weeks, and the noticing felt like relief rather than achievement. That is the difference between forcing yourself to move on and actually moving on. One requires effort. The other just happens when you have done enough of the work. You went on a date last week, not because you are ready for something new. You are not sure you are, but because your friend set it up and she seemed interesting, and interesting is enough of a reason. It was fine. It was not Madison. Nothing will be Madison. And that is actually okay because you are not looking for Madison. Madison is in the story that ended. You are in the story that is beginning. The apartment is yours now, fully, completely yours. You rearrange the furniture, not dramatically, just slightly, enough to make the space feel like a decision you made rather than a space you are inhabiting by default. You bought a new plant. You use the expensive olive oil now because it is in the cabinet and you deserve it. Here is what I want to tell you. To everyone who has had a Tuesday night Instagram story, to everyone who has looked up someone's watch at midnight and felt like the number on the watch said something about their own worth, it does not. Your worth is not your salary. It is not your apartment or your car or the restaurant you can afford to take someone to. It is not the number in your account or the contacts in your phone or the square footage of your ambition. Your worth is what you build when nobody is watching. The effort that does not photograph well. The Tuesday nights at the diner that do not make it to Instagram. The person you are becoming in the quiet, consistent, unglamorous daily work of building a life that is genuinely yours. Carter has a head start. You have a foundation. Those are different things, and the foundation lasts longer. Madison chose her story. You get to choose yours. And your story, I promise you, is just getting started. If this hit close to home, you are not alone. Every person watching this has either been here or is here right now or will be here one day. That is what heartbreak is. The most universal human experience that somehow always feels completely specific to you. Drop in the comments, what got you through your hardest breakup? Because the answers down there are going to help someone watching this right now more than anything I just said. Subscribe to Borrowed Lives. Every week, a different life. Every time, something true. See you in the next Borrowed Life.